The 1980s didn't just give us neon and big hair. It delivered sci-fi vision so disturbing, so groundbreaking, and so politically charged that censors around the world reached for their scissors. What happens when filmmakers push boundaries so far that governments feel threatened? Get ready for the strangest, most censored sci-fi films that authorities didn't want you to see. 1. Videodrome, 1983. Long before the internet made us paranoid about screens, David Cronenberg gave us Videodrome. This twisted masterpiece about a TV signal that causes hallucinations and eventually transforms human flesh wasn't just ahead of its time. It practically invented a new nightmare. James Woods plays Max Wren, a sleazy TV executive who discovers a broadcast signal showing real torture and murder, only to find himself physically merging with technology in the most disturbing ways possible. The film's infamous breathing television and stomach VCR sequences caused immediate outrage. Censors in the UK demanded nearly 4 minutes of cuts. Countries like Finland and Australia either banned it outright or severely mutilated it. One British censor reportedly vomited during the screening. What makes Videodrome truly prophetic is how it predicted our relationship with screens. The television screen is the retina of the mind's eye, announces media prophet Brian Oblivion in the film's most chilling line. Watching it now feels less like science fiction and more like documentary. The idea that media could physically transform us seems less crazy in an era where people literally develop text neck from staring at phones. Critics initially dismissed it as trash, but Videodrome has since been embraced as Cronenberg's masterpiece of techno-body horror. Its warnings about media consumption, reality distortion, and corporate control of our senses make it more relevant now than when it first shocked audiences. Death to Videodrome. Long live the new flesh. 2. The Thing, 1982. Imagine a creature that can become anyone, hide inside you, and transform your body into a screaming nightmare of teeth and tentacles. That's the terror of John Carpenter's The Thing, a film so graphically disturbing that several countries straight up refused to let audiences see it. Set in Antarctica, this paranoia-soaked masterpiece follows researchers fighting an alien that assimilates and imitates any living organism, turning trusted friends into monsters. The practical effects by Rob Bottin were revolutionary and revolting. The chest-chomping scene alone caused Sweden to ban the film until 1996. Germany restricted it from home video until 1991. British censors slashed the autopsy scene and the legendary spider head transformation. Carpenter's nightmare vision was deemed too intense for public consumption. Critics savaged it upon release. Variety called it instant junk, and audiences stayed away, preferring the friendlier alien of E.T. that same summer. The film bombed so hard that Carpenter's career never fully recovered. But something strange happened in the following decades. The film refused to die. As practical effects gave way to CGI, The Thing's handcrafted gore began to look like art. Its themes of paranoia, isolation, and distrust resonated more deeply in the post-Cold War world. What was once considered trash became recognized as one of the greatest horror sci-fi films ever made. The film that censors tried to erase instead became immortal, proving that sometimes the most disturbing visions are the ones that endure. 3. Brazil, 1985. Terry Gilliam didn't just make a movie with Brazil, he started a war. This darkly comic nightmare about bureaucracy gone mad follows Sam Lowry, a government worker who dreams of escape from a dystopian society where paperwork matters more than people. When Universal Studios head Sid Sheinberg demanded a happier ending, Gilliam didn't just refuse, he went nuclear, taking out a full-page ad in Variety, asking, "When are you going to release my film, Brazil?" The studio effectively banned the film, creating what they called the Love Conquers All version, a butchered 94-minute edit, with a happy ending that Gilliam compared to watching a dear friend lobotomized. The director smuggled his original cut to critics, who named it the best film of 1985 before most audiences could even see it. The Battle of Brazil became legendary in Hollywood. Gilliam's original 142-minute version was held hostage, with Sheinberg claiming it was financially and critically unsuccessful, despite never being properly released. film critics sided with Gilliam, turning what could have been a forgotten film into a cause célèbre. Brazil's vision of a retro future where technology fails constantly, bureaucracy crushes humanity, and terrorist bombings are so common, their background noise feels frighteningly prescient. Its portrayal of plastic surgery addiction, surveillance paranoia, and dysfunctional bureaucracy makes our own world look like the dystopia Gilliam warned us about. The film that executives tried to bury instead became the blueprint for understanding modern society's absurdities. 4. RoboCop, 1987. Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop didn't just get cut by censors, it was practically dismembered, this hyper-violent satire about a murdered cop, transformed into a corporate-owned cyborg, had to be resubmitted to the MPAA 11 times before receiving an R rating. The original cut was so extreme that even hardened film executives reportedly looked away during screenings. The ED-209 boardroom malfunction, where a malfunctioning robot reduces an executive to bloody chunks, shocked test audiences. But it was Murphy's death scene, where his hand is shot off before he's systematically executed, that censors found truly unbearable. Verhoeven delighted in pushing boundaries, later saying, "The extreme violence is like a fairy tale, an illustration of what happens when the mechanical world confronts the human world." In Britain, the film lost 26 seconds of violence. Germany banned the uncut version until 2013. Sweden and Finland hacked away at Murphy's death scene. Even the finished American version lost nearly 2 minutes of the most extreme violence, which wouldn't be restored until decades later. What censors missed was that RoboCop's violence served a purpose, showcasing a society where human life means nothing compared to corporate profit. Its satirical vision of privatized public services, media obsession with violence, and corporate control of government feels less like science fiction and more like today's headlines. A film they tried to neuter became one of the most biting critiques of American capitalism ever made, proving that sometimes the movies that make us most uncomfortable are the ones telling the hardest truths. 5. Akira, 1988. Before anime conquered global culture, Katsuhiro Otomo's Akira blew minds and disturbed censors with its apocalyptic vision of Neo-Tokyo. This stunning animation about teenage bikers, government experiments, and psychic powers that literally transform the human body was too intense for many Western authorities. It didn't just push boundaries, it obliterated them with psychic explosions. The film's graphic body horror, featuring humans bursting into massive tumors of flesh, violated virtually every content guideline in conservative countries. The UK demanded cuts to scenes of biker violence. Australia initially banned it completely. In America, it was slapped with an X rating before cuts allowed an R. One Maryland theater owner reportedly fainted during a screening. Critics didn't know what to make of it. Animation was for children, they thought. But here was a film showing graphic violence, profanity, and existential dread. Film writer Helen McCarthy noted, "Western critics weren't equipped to understand what they were seeing. They lacked the vocabulary to process animation that was decidedly not for kids." What makes Akira revolutionary isn't just its stunning hand-drawn animation, with over 160,000 individual cells, but its vision of societal collapse, teenage rebellion, and technological hubris. The film predicted the 2020 Tokyo Olympics decades in advance. Its iconic motorcycle slide became one of the most referenced scenes in animation history. Banned and butchered around the world, Akira still managed to transform animation forever, proving that sometimes the most revolutionary art is the kind authorities try hardest to suppress. 6. They Live, 1988. John Carpenter didn't just make a sci-fi action movie with They Live, he made the most dangerous political statement in 80s genre cinema. This thinly veiled attack on Reaganomics follows a drifter who discovers special sunglasses that reveal aliens have infiltrated Earth's elite, using subliminal messages to keep humans consuming, breeding, and sleeping. The film wasn't just controversial, it was revolutionary. They Live is about yuppies and unrestrained capitalism, Carpenter openly admitted. It has nothing to do with Jewish control of the world, which is slander and a lie. This didn't stop countries like Hungary and Czechoslovakia from banning it for its anti-authoritarian message. Even in America, the film faced distribution problems, with theaters in conservative areas mysteriously deciding not to screen it. The film's famous 6-minute alley fight, where Roddy Piper tries to force Keith David to put on the truth-revealing sunglasses, became legendary for its brutal realism. Carpenter let the actors choreograph it themselves, resulting in what critics called the longest, most exhausting fight scene in American cinema. The scene became a metaphor for how hard it is to make people see truth when they're invested in lies. What's truly unsettling about They Live isn't its aliens or violence, it's how accurately it predicted our own reality. Billboards commanding obey and consume feel less like science fiction and more like an Instagram feed. Its vision of a media controlled by hidden forces manipulating humanity seems less paranoid with each passing year. The film authorities didn't want you to see became the most accurate prophecy of our media-saturated, economically divided society. 7. The Fly, 1986. David Cronenberg's remake of The Fly didn't just reinvent body horror. It created stomach-churning scenes so graphic that censors worldwide reached for their scissors. Jeff Goldblum plays Seth Brundle, a scientist who accidentally merges his DNA with a housefly, leading to a grotesque transformation that's both physically revolting and emotionally devastating. The film wasn't just banned, it was dissected. The infamous arm wrestling scene, where Brundle snaps a man's arm backward with a sickening crunch, was cut in multiple countries. Japan removed the monkey cat sequence entirely. Britain slashed the vomit drop scene, where Brundle dissolves food with digestive enzymes. Finland banned the film for anyone under 18. In Germany, the film didn't reach home video in its uncut form until 2017, 31 years after its release. Critics were divided between disgust and admiration. Roger Ebert called it a gross-out movie, while David Denby praised it as the most repulsively beautiful science fiction film ever made. Audiences weren't prepared for a film that used horrific transformation as metaphor for aging, disease, and mortality. The Academy awkwardly acknowledged its technical brilliance with an Oscar for makeup effects, while keeping it far from major categories. What makes The Fly remarkable isn't just its revolting special effects, but how it uses body horror to explore universal human fears. Cronenberg later revealed the film was inspired by watching his parents age and die, turning the monster movie into a meditation on the body's inevitable breakdown. Censors saw only the surface gore, missing the profound exploration of what it means to lose control of your own flesh, theme that remains as disturbing today as when scissors-wielding authorities tried to tame it. 8. Altered States, 1980. Ken Russell's Altered States didn't just push the envelope, it dissolved it in a hallucinogenic nightmare soup. This mind-bending film about a scientist using sensory deprivation and ancient drugs to explore genetic memory features some of the most disturbing transformation sequences ever filmed. William Hurt's character literally devolves into a primitive ape man, then into a mass of primordial consciousness. Censors weren't just troubled, they were existentially disturbed. The film's psychedelic sequences, featuring crucifixions, multi-eyed goats, and lizard-human hybrids, violated religious sensibilities worldwide. Italy banned it outright for blasphemy. Spain refused classification until heavy cuts were made. In the Philippines, the film was deemed an attack on religious principles and banned entirely. Even in America, the MPAA demanded cuts to hallucination sequences before granting an R rating. Production was notoriously troubled. Original screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky, working from his own novel, removed his name from the credits after fighting with Russell. The director's notoriously unhinged approach led to dangerous shooting conditions. Hurt later claimed he nearly drowned in the isolation tank and suffered permanent hearing damage from the production. What makes Altered States remarkable is how it blends hard science with spiritual exploration, creating what critic Michael Atkinson called the only American movie that even attempts to be about the transcendental search for universal truth. Its core questions about consciousness, evolution, and reality remain unresolved in science today. A film censors found too disturbing for audiences became one of cinema's most ambitious explorations of what it means to be human, proving that sometimes the most profound questions come packaged in the most disturbing visions. 9. Scanners, 1981. Before superhero films dominated cinema, David Cronenberg gave us a darker vision of psychic powers with scanners. This tale of telepathic scanners being hunted by an evil corporation featured the most notorious head explosion in film history. Michael Ironside's Daryl Revock makes a rival scanner's head literally burst in a shower of blood and brain matter. The scene wasn't just shocking, it was deemed dangerous. Censors around the world scrambled to protect audiences. Germany banned the uncut version until 2007, 26 years after release. Britain removed close-ups of pulsating veins during psychic battles. Australia refused classification entirely until heavy cuts were made. Japan blurred the head explosion, rendering the film's most famous moment nearly unintelligible. The exploding head effect itself became legendary. Special effects artist Gary Zeller filled a prosthetic head with dog food, leftover lunch scraps, and fake blood, then shot it from behind with a shotgun. The crew only had one take, and they nailed it. The result was so convincing that rumors spread of Cronenberg using a real cadaver. He didn't deny them, later saying, "Let them believe what they want." What makes Scanners endure isn't just its shocking imagery, but its political subtext. The film presents corporations weaponizing human difference, turning natural variation into military advantage. Its vision of powerful psychics branded as threats feels eerily prescient in an era of surveillance capitalism. A film censors tried to defang, instead popularized head explosion as cultural shorthand for mind-blowing revelations, proving that sometimes the images authorities most want to suppress become the ones that most powerfully enter our collective consciousness. 10. Possession, 1981. Andrzej Żuławski's Possession isn't just disturbing, it's practically radioactive. This unclassifiable film about a couple's apocalyptic divorce stars Isabelle Adjani and Sam Neill in performances so intense they border on psychological breakdown. But it wasn't just the emotional extremity that troubled censors. It was Adjani's forbidden relationship with a Lovecraftian tentacle creature that pushed the film beyond acceptable boundaries. The UK branded Possession a video nasty, effectively banning it during the 1980s moral panic. The US release cut nearly 45 minutes, transforming the psychological horror into an incoherent supernatural thriller. Germany initially banned it entirely. In some regions, the infamous subway miscarriage scene, where Adjani convulses and expels blood, milk, and unidentifiable fluids for over 4 minutes, was removed completely, destroying the film's emotional core. Żuławski wrote the film during his own devastating divorce, later admitting, "I made Possession as I was in a terrible state myself." The production was notoriously grueling. Adjani later claimed it took her years to recover psychologically from the role, saying she had to descend into madness to deliver her performance. The film's political backdrop, the Berlin Wall literally divides scenes, adds Cold War anxiety to its already overwhelming emotional landscape. What makes Possession remarkable isn't just its extremity, but its genuine exploration of emotional collapse. Set in divided Berlin, the film uses body horror and doppelgangers to externalize psychological trauma. A film authorities deemed too disturbing to view has since been recognized as a masterpiece of art house horror, proving that sometimes the most profound emotional truths come wrapped in the most disturbing imagery imaginable. 11. The Running Man, 1987. Before reality TV turned suffering into entertainment, The Running Man showed us exactly where we were headed. This dystopian thriller stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as Ben Richards, a wrongfully convicted man forced to participate in a game show where runners flee from professional killers while millions watch from home. The film wasn't just action, it was prophecy wrapped in spandex and chainsaws. Director Paul Michael Glaser delivered a vision so unnerving that censors worldwide took notice. The UK demanded cuts to every death scene. Germany removed the ice hockey sequence entirely, where a killer with explosive hockey pucks hunts contestants. Australia insisted on removing close-ups of Richards breaking a guard's neck. Even in America, television broadcasts butchered the film beyond recognition. What made The Running Man truly dangerous wasn't its violence, but its political commentary. The film depicts media as a tool of state control, with fabricated news footage framing innocent people as terrorists. "This is television, that's all it is," growls game show host Damon Killian. "Nothing to do with reality." This critique of media manipulation hit too close to home for authoritarian regimes, leading to outright bans in several countries. The film has aged disturbingly well. Its vision of privatized prisons, state-sponsored entertainment, and surveillance culture feels less like science fiction and more like a documentary about modern television. When Richards asks, "What happened to America?" the film wasn't just questioning a fictional future, it was challenging viewers to examine the entertainment they consume. A film censors tried to neuter instead became a roadmap for our reality TV present. 12. Repo Man, 1984. Alex Cox's Repo Man wasn't just weird, it was dangerously, gloriously unclassifiable. This punk sci-fi comedy about car repossessors chasing an alien-infested Chevy Malibu through Los Angeles, mixed social commentary, conspiracy theories, and hardcore violence in ways that made censors physically uncomfortable. The film didn't just challenge authority, it laughed in its face while flipping it off. Censors had no idea what to do with it. Germany banned the uncut version until 1999. Britain demanded cuts to the lobotomy scene and car trunk reveal. Finland banned it for anyone under 16. But most famously, Universal Pictures essentially banned it themselves, barely releasing the film before attempting to bury it. Studio executive Robert Lawrence later admitted, "We didn't know how to sell it, so we didn't." The film's most controversial elements weren't just its violence, but its anarchic disrespect for consumer culture and government authority. Everything from generic food labels, food, beer, to the mysterious government agents draws savage mockery. When Punk Otto, Emilio Estevez, discovers the truth about the car's contents, the revelation is simultaneously profound and absurd, a perfect metaphor for the film itself. What makes Repo Man remarkable is how it created its own cult following despite active suppression. After Universal essentially abandoned it, the film found life through midnight screenings and an unusually early home video release. Critics who initially dismissed it gradually recognized its brilliance. A film that authorities tried to hide became one of the most influential cult movies ever made, proving that sometimes the most revolutionary art comes packaged in the most bizarre containers. 13. Lifeforce, 1985. Tobe Hooper's Lifeforce isn't just sci-fi horror. It's possibly the most ambitious naked space vampire apocalypse ever filmed. This wild adaptation of Colin Wilson's novel, The Space Vampires, follows astronauts who discover humanoid aliens in Halley's Comet, unwittingly bringing them to Earth, where they drain humans of their life essence, turning London into ground zero for an extinction-level event. Censors didn't just object, they panicked. The film's unprecedented mix of nudity, violence, and cosmic horror violated virtually every content guideline of the 1980s. Sweden heavily censored the transformation scenes, where victims literally explode into withered husks. Australia demanded cuts to the autopsy sequence. Germany banned the uncut version until 2002. Even in America, TriStar Pictures slashed 15 minutes from the theatrical cut, rendering the plot nearly incomprehensible. Production was notoriously troubled. Cannon Films gave Hooper an unprecedented $25 million budget, which he promptly went over. The studio then panicked and re-edited the film, leading Hooper to disown the American cut. Test audiences reportedly laughed at scenes intended to be terrifying, leading to even more frantic re-editing. What makes Lifeforce remarkable isn't just its ambitious scope, but its genuine cosmic horror. The film presents an alien threat that's literally incomprehensible to humans, beyond our understanding of biology or physics. Its vision of London descending into chaos while glowing souls rise into space feels like a Lovecraftian apocalypse filtered through 80s excess. A film that censors mutilated eventually found its audience in its complete form, proving that sometimes the most outlandish visions contain the most genuine cosmic dread. 14. Dead Ringers, 1988. David Cronenberg's Dead Ringers didn't feature monsters or aliens. Its horror came from something far more disturbing. Twin gynecologists slowly descending into madness and drug addiction. Jeremy Irons delivers a dual performance as Beverly and Elliot Mantle, brilliant doctors who share everything, including women, until a patient with a rare anatomical condition triggers their psychological collapse. Censors weren't just troubled, they were genuinely disturbed. The film's controversial gynecological instruments, designed for mutant women and displayed like beautiful works of art, violated medical ethics so profoundly that several countries demanded their removal. Britain censored the entire operating theater sequence. Germany banned it outright until heavily edited. Spain refused classification until multiple scenes were cut. Even in Canada, Cronenberg's home country, the film faced distribution problems. What makes Dead Ringers so unsettling isn't graphic violence. It's relatively restrained by Cronenberg standards, but its clinical violation of medical trust and bodily autonomy. The film presents medicine itself as potentially monstrous. When Beverly asks a metalworker to create his nightmarish instruments, he explains they're for separating Siamese twins. The metaphor isn't subtle, but it's devastatingly effective. Critics were divided between revulsion and admiration. Roger Ebert called it a nightmare, while David Denby praised Irons for the most challenging role or roles of his career. The film's clinical aesthetic, surgical blues and reds dominating every frame, creates a sterilized nightmare that feels more disturbing than explicit gore. A film authorities found too psychologically unsettling eventually became recognized as one of Cronenberg's masterpieces, proving that sometimes the most profound horror comes from within the institutions we trust most. So, there you have it, 10 films that pushed boundaries so far that authorities tried to erase them. But here's the question. Were these movies banned because of what they showed or what they revealed? Drop your thoughts below and ask yourself, are today's streaming algorithms and content warnings just modern versions of the same censorship these films fought against? The scissors may be digital now, but someone's still deciding what you shouldn't see.